Greetings, folks. Welcome back to another computer video. Wow. It has been quite a while since my last video, I believe about a year ago. And before that, the video that came before that one was a year before that. So as you can tell, I have a really great schedule about a video a year, it seems. But I actually have a few videos planned that I want to make sometime in the near future. Of course, apparently I never know when I'm going to actually make these videos since I don't really have much of a regular schedule, but I do have a few videos that I want to make, in the future, hopefully not too far into the future. And this is the first one of those videos. So yeah, it has been a while since I made a video. I'm not going to go into too many details, but I mean, I have had a lot going on in life, quite busy, with various different things. And just haven't really had the time to just sit down and record one of these computer videos. Back in the day, I used to make a bunch of these all the time, when life was a lot simpler and didn't have as many responsibilities. I made these videos all the time. And I was thinking about it recently, and I was like, I really miss these videos, they're very crude, I don't have a tripod. I'm just recording this with my phone. It's usually just a single take. So not really like super, definitely not high production value like modern YouTube really is. But I always have a soft spot for these videos, and I felt like, I might as well just make another one of, one of my older machines. So here we go. This video is going to be on a Macintosh PowerBook. Specifically, it is a PowerBook 170. Let me open this up with my one-handed videography here. Yep, there you go, Macintosh PowerBook 170. I've always wanted a PowerBook in the 100 series for, like over 10 years at this point. Ever since, when I first started getting into vintage Macs, the PowerBook 100 series was a series of machines that I really wanted, just because, they represent, such an important time period in computing history. Prior to the PowerBook 100 series, Apple had the Macintosh Portable, which wasn't really it was a portable machine, but it wasn't a laptop. It was like a luggable machine, really. So the PowerBook 100 series was their first true laptop. And the 100 series was introduced in, I believe, 1991 with the PowerBook 100, 140, and the 170, with the 170 being the highest end of the original three PowerBooks. This one having a 25 megahertz Motorola 68030 CPU and an active matrix display, a monochrome display, 640 by 400 resolution. The 100 and the 140 had passive matrix displays of lower quality. The 170 was truly the high-end machine of the time. But even over 10 years ago, when I was initially getting into these machines and wanted one, it was very much known at the time the flaws that these machines had in terms of plastic quality, as well as the hard drives and everything in between. These machines are notorious for brittle plastics, especially in the top case and the hinges, where the brass threaded inserts that are molded into the plastic on the hinges have a tendency to crack, or the plastic mounts around those will crack and the inserts will separate from the top case. And as such, you will have a really messed up hinge, a really messed up top case. And for a while, there wasn't a perfect fix for it. There was one point where the fix was finding a top case that didn't have the issue, or super gluing them back, or things like that. And I think nowadays, the super glue method might still be viable. I'm not too sure. But there was a point where, these machines were not great for folks that were, sort of just getting into the hobby, just because of the nature of the work that needed to be done on them. However, it is 2024, and there's been a lot of advancements in keeping these machines running. I actually purchased this laptop as a restored laptop already, just because I've always wanted one of these PowerBooks, but I don't really have the know-how to restore one myself. And now granted, I guess you could at that point argue, how much of a hobbyist am I really if I'm not restoring my own machines? To each their own. But I did really want one of these, but I wanted one that was working, one that could stay in my collection, and one that I could use and that I didn't feel like I had to really baby it too much. I mean, of course, obviously I'm not throwing this thing around, bringing it to like a coffee shop with me or anything, but I did want to, feel as though I could use it without having to worry that the hinges are just going to break at any moment. So I actually purchased this as a refurbished machine from an individual who actually rebuilt the display hinge supports using ABS reinforcements that are actually, I believe, glued onto the top case that completely replaced the original hinge mounts, which means in theory it should be way stronger than the originals ever were, and shouldn't really have to worry about a cracked top case. Additionally, another pain point on these machines was the 2.5-inch SCSI hard drives that went in these machines. These used, yes, SCSI drives, like 2.5-inch laptop size SCSI drives, which were not a common thing even back then. I mean, the PowerBooks used them primarily, but not a whole lot of machines otherwise used these drives, so they were very specialized drives. And nowadays, even back then, back at 10 or so years ago when I was getting into this hobby, and was interested in these machines, the drives were failing. And at the time, the solution was you find a drive that works. Or, there were primitive solutions like SCSI to SD and things at the time, but not nearly as mature as they are now. This has a blue SCSI in it, which uses, I believe, an SD card, and you can load that, and it hooks up to the SCSI interface and just uses an SD card and emulates a SCSI drive, which is great because, there we go. Don't have to worry about those drives and worrying that one day the machine won't boot because the drive failed, which is really great. This machine also has the full 8 megabytes, which I believe is the maximum amount of RAM. It has the 6 megabyte RAM expansion card in it, and so brings up to 8 megs. And I believe this has a 16 gig card in it. I honestly have not opened this up since buying it, so it's as configured by the individual that I purchased it from. So I believe it has a 16 gig SD card in it, and it has System 755 and System 701 on the card, and you can, basically it's in a dual boot configuration. I can boot 701 or 755, depending on what exactly I'm looking for. Most of the time I'm running 701 just because 701 runs way faster on these machines than 755, but 755 has some better software compatibility. So I usually, depending on what I need to run, I'll usually run 701 or 755, usually prioritizing 701. So yeah, I mean, this is a fully restored system, of course, being, a 170 in all of its glory. I mean, I really do like the look of these machines. They very much, capture the Apple design language at the time, and I really do like them. The trackball on this one is nice and smooth. The rollers on this one have been cleaned recently, so it is very smooth, tracks very nicely, and I actually do quite like trackballs, honestly. Quite a fan of trackballs, so this is very pleasant to use. I don't have a battery in here, I just have the battery cover. I haven't bothered yet getting a battery with this because honestly I can't really think of any instances where I would actually use it on battery power. I mean, I guess it would be a cool parlor trick to be like, hey, look at this super old laptop that's running off a battery. But nope, there's no battery in here at the moment. It's just the battery cover, just so everything is still looking, so that it just maintains, the design, just to have the cover there. But there's no battery. Keyboard, which honestly, I don't love the keyboard. I don't love it. It's not the most pleasant thing to use, at least for me. Kind of gummy a little bit. But that's just indicative of the keyboards at the time. I've had a few other PowerBooks that have keyboards that feel exactly like this, so I know it's not just this keyboard just being exceptionally bad. It's just not a kind of keyboard that I've ever loved, and this one's no exception. And here we see I believe it's a 9-inch monochrome display, I think it's like a 10-inch or something like that, somewhere between 9 and 10 inch monochrome display. 640 by 400 resolution, and of course, yep, PowerBook 170, real nice. So yeah, the original PowerBook 100 lineup include the 100, the 140, and the 170. The 100 does not look like this. It looks completely different, but the 140 does share a similar case to the 170, with the 170 being the high end of the three original PowerBooks. I also really wanted a 180 or like a 180C, but you know, the 180 is a slightly upgraded model. I think it can max out at 14 megs of RAM or something along those lines, and has a grayscale display instead of a monochrome display, and so it's slightly nicer. But also the 170 is a cool machine as well. And whether, you know, I was just looking for either a 170 or 180 at the time, and the 170 is what I came across. But I'm not mad about that. It's really nice. It's really cool. Going on to the back here, mine does not have the port door, of course. Most of them, a lot of them won't. I won't say most of them, because I have seen a good amount of these around that still have port doors, but mine does not. They broke off really commonly. Honestly, it wasn't a great design to begin with, because if you think about it, you had to open the door each time to turn on the laptop, because this is the power button right here. So you would have to open the door, hit the button, close the door, and you know, sometimes, and then, you know, if you need to plug in literally anything on the laptop, you would have to have the door open. Or if you had to hit the reset or programmer switch, you would also need to have the door open. So I'm not surprised that a lot of these broke off or got lost. It's like, you know, you pick up the laptop forgetting that the door is open, you put it in a bag or something and it breaks off. Or, you know, it just breaks off from brittle plastic. I have seen these, literally people open them and they just break right off from the plastic support, just breaking off because the plastic's brittle. So, you know, it's like, it'd be nice if it had the door, just because it would maintain the clean lines, but at the same time, if it did have the door, I'd probably be worried that I'd break it every time I opened it. So I'm kind of not mad that I don't have it. But yeah, you can see on here we have the modem, HDI 30 SCSI. We have the serial ports, and we have an ADB port. We have line in and headphone jack. And yeah, we have the two serial ports, programmer switch, reset switch, and the power button. And then we have the power cord input. This is the power cord. I have the PowerBook AC adapter right here. You can see it is a 7.5 volt, 2 amp adapter. There you go. And yeah, so here we are. Here's the lid. Very nice. It does look very nice, honestly. I'm a very big fan of this design. And on the front, you know, we have the latch. And on this side, we have the floppy disk drive. It is what they call a super drive at the time. It's a 3.5 inch, 1.44 meg drive, but it can still read the 800K disks. Like the Macintosh formatted 800K disks, and it can format those disks, which is a very handy thing if you have like an older Macintosh, like a Mac Plus or something that only has an 800K drive. It's very useful. And then the feet on both sides to sort of prop it up. PowerBooks did have this for a while, just in very many designs, but this is one of the first ones where it swivels, foot on this side, foot on that side. And so, yeah, I think that covers sort of the overview of this. Yeah, I believe so. Like I said, there's no battery in it. Don't really need it. Just have to use it plugged in. But yeah, I really did want a PowerBook 100 series machine, just because it does, you know, represent those first, you know, original Apple laptops. Because, you know, this really is what immediately followed the Macintosh Portable. So after the Mac Portable, there was the 100, 140, 170. And so it's a very, you know, significant machine, and it's nice to have one in the collection. I do plan on keeping this in the collection. I don't plan on, you know, getting rid of this or anything like that. My collection has changed over the years. I have, you know, acquired machines, gotten rid of machines to make room for the ones I've acquired, since, you know, do have a limited space. I can't keep everything. But but I do think that this one is one that I'm going to keep, just because of, how much I've wanted one of these for a long time and just how nice they are. And it doesn't really take up that much space. That's a great thing about laptops. They don't take up that much space. Yeah, I think that covers everything. I think the only other thing I might put just for reference is that these originally had 40 and 80 meg hard disks. You could either get a 40 or an 80 meg disk. I think they shipped with 2 megs of RAM on board, and you could expand to either 6 or 8 megs. This one has 8 megs. And yeah, it has that 68030 CPU, and it does have an FPU, and they run at 25 megahertz. And yeah, I believe that's it. So let's go ahead and power this thing on and take a look at it. So, there goes the plug on the ground. Real nice. I cannot do this with one hand, I'm sorry. Like I said, we don't do tripods around here. It's very crude video style. All right. And here we go. Let's take a look. So we're going to be coming up into 701 here, which is what I always have it set to boot to by default. I love the screen on this machine. Honestly, for being an active matrix display from 1991, it is a very crisp, very bright display, and it's also just very pleasant to look at. Compared to like the passive matrix displays, it's a very, very crisp and bright display. I really like it. I'm also very lucky, knock on wood, because my machine does not suffer from the tunnel vision issue that plagues the 170 and the 180, as well as various other PowerBooks, I believe. But it's basically an issue where the 4 corners will eventually, the image will darken until it gradually darkens the whole display, I believe. It has varying severities. If you get it all, it can vary in severity. Some will never go beyond just like the corners if it develops at all. I haven't encountered it on here. I'm very lucky about that, but of course, knock on wood, because you never know. I don't want to jinx myself. So here, PowerBook 170, 8 megs of RAM, 701. And then this has 701, 755 and a storage, which just has a bunch of different software and tools. Like we got graphic software, which we have things that I can't even run on here, like Photoshop and software like that, which I cannot run on here, but they are on here. So I also have games on here that I cannot run. Like last time I tried to run SimCity, it crashed the machine. Things like that, but got a bunch of software on here. One thing that I can run, thankfully, is Microsoft Word. So happy that I can run that. 5.1a. Yeah, look at that. Hello, world. Yeah, of course. It's very cool. So yep, there is Microsoft Word. Very cool. On the 701 drive, we have Teach Text, System Folder, and Netscape. This should probably also be a good time to say that this laptop has Wi-Fi. Can you believe it? There's actually a feature on the Blue SCSI where you can put a Raspberry Pi Pico, I believe, on it and use that to act as a Wi-Fi controller. And then this emulates I believe it's a, I forget exactly what it is. I think I can pull it up in the SCSI probe. It emulates something. I forget exactly what it is, but it emulates a certain hardware device that allows you to connect to the internet. You set that up through Mac TCP, so I have that set up here. I basically give it my own IP address. It thinks it's Ethernet. So I have you configure the subnet and the router address. So I have mine configured there with the static IP address. And then once you do that, you can go to the Wi-Fi here. It'll find a Wi-Fi connection and it doesn't remember it on boot. So I have to set the and it will connect to the Wi-Fi. Let's give it some time. Yeah, I still have the default Wi-Fi name. I haven't gotten around to changing it yet. Kind of embarrassing, but yeah, and so this has to stay open because if you close this, then it cuts off your Wi-Fi connection. So I have to leave that open. And then we can open Netscape. Netscape Navigator 2.02. Look at that. And we can go to a website like www. We can go to FrogFind because I don't know where else to go. So we can go to FrogFind here. That'll pull that up. Search engine for vintage computers. And we can search up like PowerBook 170. Oh man, document contains no data. Might be acting up. But it is cool that I can even get on the internet at all. Yeah, it's a little finicky, but to be fair, I was on the internet on a PowerBook 170 from 1991. So how cool is that regardless? But there is that. 701 really is the best OS to run on this, I think, because 755 obviously is newer, but it definitely is not as fast. Let's boot to 755 and take a look at that. So we just change to 755 here. Hello, you can see me in the screen. This one does take a while longer to boot. And here we are. It thinks I have a battery for some reason. I don't. Or I guess you could say that's also a Lego brick. One of those two. It's not 12:43 a.m. either, but it is what it is. So here we are in 755. So you can see here, Macintosh PowerBook 755, 8 megs. Here we are. You can also use the Wi-Fi on here too. I don't usually, but you can. This also has some applications on here like Office again, Word, Photoshop, and some of the drivers and things like that. And it's also got probably some other games on it, I think. Or it might be the same games. Oh, it's got a bunch of stuff on it. Look at that. Some of these I also tried running before and they crashed the system, but I know Tetris will run on here. Wolfenstein 3D will not. Do not try. But yep. So here we are. Here's the 170. Very cool machine. Very happy to have one of these in my collection now. I don't use vintage Macs a lot, but when I do, this is definitely one that I do use, just because it's very convenient to just hook it up, and it's also very versatile now with the blue SCSI and having been restored and things like that. But yeah, this was my very crude video on my PowerBook 170, but you know, just in the same style of videos that I've always been making. So hopefully you enjoyed this one, and I will see you in the next video. I do have plans for more videos, more Macs, a few other machines as well. And so we'll see when I get around to making those. But in the meantime, hope you enjoyed. Take care.